The movie starts and we see the year 1480. We are introduced to Prince Vlad of Romania and his beautiful wife Elizabeth. The two of them are living a very happy and loving life together. Vlad loves Elizabeth deeply, and with every passing day he brings her new and wonderful gifts. Today, he has come with a golden music box made just for her. The two of them are enjoying the moment together, but their happiness does not last long. Because that very same night, Prince Vlad receives news that war has broken out in his kingdom. The situation has become very dangerous because enemy forces have already reached the walls of his fortress. While preparing to fight the enemy, Vlad announces to his people that Elizabeth must be taken to a safe place immediately. And before leaving the palace himself, he asks the priest to pray, handing Elizabeth's safety over to God. We are shown that Prince Vlad rides out to war, while on the other side, Princess Elizabeth sets off for a safer castle. We see Elizabeth riding on horseback through the forest, with a group of soldiers riding alongside her for protection. But the enemies have already been cleverly told about Elizabeth's secret escape route and the location of the safe castle. An enemy soldier is hiding up in a tree, and the moment Elizabeth passes, he attacks. Elizabeth herself escapes the blow, but two of her soldiers fall from their horses. Sensing the danger, she immediately rides forward and flees. The war scene is shown next. Vlad and his soldiers come up with a plan to stop the enemy at the walls. They bring large barrels of oil, line them up near the fortress walls, and set them all on fire. Then they push the burning barrels forward toward the enemy. When the flaming barrels roll toward the enemy soldiers, they panic and scatter away from the walls to escape the fire. A brutal and bloody battle breaks out. Vlad's army moves forward, fighting the remaining enemy soldiers. Swords clash against swords without stopping. Heads are cut off. People are killed with no mercy. Bodies fall everywhere. Within a very short time, the battlefield turns into a river of blood. In the end, Prince Vlad and his army overwhelm the enemy completely. His plan works brilliantly. Shortly after, Prince Vlad and his entire army arrive at the enemy's castle, carrying the heads of their enemies on their spears to display their victory. But before he can even celebrate his win, Vlad receives word that Elizabeth has been attacked. He drops everything and rushes to find her. Meanwhile, on the other side, we see that Elizabeth has changed her route to escape the enemy. She has ridden into a snowy region, not thinking about what dangers might be waiting ahead. She's pushing her horse as fast as it can go. The area she is in at this moment has been given a name, the Forest of Wolves. It is called this because many wolves live there, and to trap and kill those wolves, dozens of traps have been buried beneath the snow. The horses of Elizabeth's soldiers get caught in these traps and fall, but Elizabeth keeps running, trying to survive and get away. Then finally, her horse also gets caught in a trap. She falls to the ground with the horse. Enemies surround her from all sides. And at that exact moment, Vlad arrives to save her. Vlad is almost right beside her, but his horse also gets caught in the same trap. Vlad moves quickly, leaps off his horse, and runs on foot to reach Elizabeth. One enemy soldier is about to attack her. Vlad throws his sword from a distance, but in that moment his sword passes through the enemy's body and accidentally strikes Elizabeth as well. Seeing this happen, Vlad screams in horror. He runs and takes Elizabeth into his arms. But Elizabeth is already gone. She is dead. Elizabeth's blood covers Vlad's hands completely, and his tears will not stop falling. Coming back to his senses, Vlad rushes straight to the priest. He is completely out of his mind with grief and rage. He grabs the priest by the throat and says that God did not protect his wife, even though he fought wars in God's name and killed people in God's name. He demands that the priest pray and ask God to perform a miracle to bring his Elizabeth back. But nothing like that is going to happen. The priest says nothing. Vlad's fury reaches its limit. He picks up a crucifix lying nearby, drives it into the priest's stomach, and kills him right there. After doing this, he lets out a terrifying laugh that frightens everyone around him. He shouts at the top of his voice that he no longer believes in God. At that very moment, a powerful wind sweeps through, and we see blood-red tears running down from the eyes of a statue of Jesus. Vlad laughs again like a madman, and his closest people drag him out of the church in fear. We are told that from this point on, Vlad is no longer human. He knows very well that every good soul is given the chance to return to this world again, even if it takes many centuries. And now he has made his decision. He will wait for his wife to be reborn and come back to this world. The scene then cuts, and 400 years later, we are shown Paris, France. Inside a church, we see a priest who has been called to discuss a very special patient. The doctor cannot figure out what illness this patient has, and finding a cure is very important because the patient is the niece of the Queen of England, and the Queen is deeply worried about her. The priest comes to the hospital to meet the patient. After entering the mental hospital, they pass through a secret door and walk down a tunnel. The priest is introduced to a patient named Maria. Doctor explains Maria's history, saying that she had done something in a church that she should never have done, and the moment she did it, she fell straight into hysteria. She has developed a mental condition that has made her completely out of control. When her records are sent for, a very strange detail is discovered. Maria was born in 1795, which is completely impossible. If she was truly born in 1795, then by today's date she would be 130 years old. But Maria looks no older than 30. The doctor tells the priest, "This is exactly why I called you here. I believe she is a creature of the devil." While they are talking, Maria, who had been sleeping, suddenly wakes up. The priest moves closer to Maria and tries to speak with her. When Maria starts growling, the priest sees her large, sharp teeth, and he immediately understands. Maria is in fact a vampire. The priest becomes very excited and tells the doctor that this is the first vampire ever to be captured alive. The doctor does not believe the priest, so to prove it, the priest opens the window. The sunlight streaming in burns Maria's skin instantly. As we all know, vampires cannot survive in sunlight. Their skin begins to burn, and this is the most obvious sign of all. Then when the priest holds a crucifix in front of Maria, she burns the crucifix with her gaze in fury. The priest forcibly grabs the doctor's assistant, cuts his hand, and feeds a few drops of his blood to Maria so that she calms down a little. While doing this, the priest notices bite marks on Maria's neck. This tells him that Maria was once a human being, and a vampire bit her and turned her into one. The priest tells the doctor that the church is still searching for the vampire who has been turning people into other vampires. Hearing all of this, Maria herself speaks up and says that their master is a prince who is searching for his princess. And one day, while searching for her, he will surely come here too. The scene shifts, and we are shown a man named Jonathan who has arrived in a strange town. Nobody in this town wants to come here, and for good reason. Even his carriage driver refuses to go any further and tells Jonathan that wolves rule this place. He hands Jonathan a torch, throws his bags off the carriage, and even gives him a crucifix, though a crucifix is certainly not going to help against wolves. Jonathan takes his things and heads toward his destination. He needs to enter a castle, and the moment he steps inside, the back door of the castle closes by itself. Inside, he meets Count Dracula, who introduces himself as Prince Vlad. And yes, this Dracula is the very same Prince Vlad we saw roughly 400 years ago. In the next scene, we see Dracula and Jonathan sitting at a dining table together. Jonathan has come with a business deal for Prince Vlad. He has absolutely no idea that Prince Vlad is Dracula. As he reaches into his bag to pull out some documents, the crucifix the carriage driver gave him slips out and falls onto the table. Dracula sees it and immediately asks Jonathan whether he believes in God. Jonathan says no, someone gifted this to me. Saying that, he goes back to his work. Dracula takes advantage of Jonathan's innocence, picks up the crucifix, and throws it into the fire. After that, he shows Jonathan to his room and specifically warns him not to leave this room at night under any circumstances. A little while later, Dracula sits down to listen to music. Meanwhile, Jonathan begins reading the books kept in his room, which contain the full history of this castle. On one page, there is a portrait of Prince Vlad from his youth. But strangely, the portrait of the princess beside him has been torn out and is missing. The scene cuts, and we are shown the priest visiting Maria's home. The priest tells Maria's fiancé that Maria is much better now, but the evil inside her has not completely left, so they will be keeping her with them for a few more days. While keeping the fiancé occupied in conversation, the priest quietly slips into Maria's room to search for anything connected to the vampire. And he finds the very same portrait of Elizabeth, which has clearly been torn from the book that Jonathan is reading in the castle on the other side. Back at the castle, Jonathan cannot sleep and decides to explore the entire castle. While wandering around, he notices a faint light coming from behind a door. The door opens to reveal a staircase leading down into a very beautiful basement. In the middle of the basement sits a coffin. When Jonathan opens it, he finds Dracula sleeping inside. Before Jonathan can close the coffin, Dracula suddenly grabs his wrist and tells him he should not have left his room. Suddenly, strange and terrifying creatures appear in the basement and knock Jonathan unconscious. These creatures are called gargoyles in this story. They are vampire creatures who serve Dracula completely. The gargoyles chain Jonathan upside down. Just as they are doing this, Jonathan regains consciousness. Dracula gives an order. He tells the gargoyles to place a large bowl beneath Jonathan's head and then cut open the veins in his neck. Jonathan is terrified. He looks at Dracula and says, "How could God have created something as dangerous as you?" Hearing these words, Dracula lets out a strange and deeply chilling laugh. Then he looks at Jonathan and says, "You are about to die. Do you have any last wish?" Jonathan does not want anything, but there is one thing he wants to know. He wants to understand how Prince Vlad became Dracula. As his last wish, he asks Dracula to tell him his own story. No one has ever asked Dracula this before. Surprised and moved by this unusual request, Dracula orders the gargoyles to take Jonathan down, because now he is going to tell Jonathan his story. Dracula tells him everything, from the war to the death of Elizabeth, all of which we have already seen earlier in this story. Dracula explains that he has always known that good souls are reborn into this world again. So he waited and waited for her to return. Years and years went by. Dracula remained locked inside his own castle, and he became deeply jealous of ordinary humans because at least when they died, they found peace. But Dracula would live for thousands of years. One day, a particularly strong wave of loneliness hit him, and in his rage, he smashed Elizabeth's grave apart. But inside, there was nothing left except her bones. After this, his obsession and hunger to find Elizabeth grew even stronger, so he came up with a completely new plan. He decided to create a perfume. He spent years researching across the whole world, collecting the most beautiful and fragrant flowers from every corner of the earth. From these, he created a perfume so powerful it could put anyone under a magical spell. He tells Jonathan that the first time he wore this perfume, every woman around him fell completely under his influence. The scent of that perfume brought everything and everyone under Dracula's control. Wearing it, Dracula could make everyone at a party do exactly what he wished. One day, he attended a party in France where many women were present. He wore the perfume again, and this time he thought he finally saw Elizabeth in the crowd. He rushed toward her. But when he touched the woman's shoulder, he realized it was not Elizabeth at all. Coming so close to his goal only to fall back again shattered him completely. He had no more strength left inside himself to keep searching on his own. So he came up with yet another new plan. He would use women to search for Elizabeth on his behalf. With this thought fully formed in his mind, he began biting every single person at the party, turning them all into vampires. Maria was also at that party, and that was the very night she became a vampire. Now with so many people working for him, Dracula's hope was renewed. But Dracula had also grown very old and weak, so he made a decision that he would not leave his castle anymore. He put the gargoyles to work for him. The gargoyles brought him vast amounts of wealth, and he used all of that wealth to fund the search for Elizabeth. Jonathan looks at Dracula and tells him that he understands this kind of love very well. Love is exactly this kind of obsession, he says, and he knows this because he himself loves his own fiancée very deeply. Saying this, he opens his locket and shows Dracula the picture of his fiancée inside it. The moment Dracula sees that picture, he loses his mind completely. Because the girl in the picture, Jonathan's fiancée, is none other than Elizabeth herself, reborn into a new life. Elizabeth has been born again, this time in the form of Jonathan's fiancée. Jonathan cannot understand what Dracula is saying, but Dracula is so overjoyed by this discovery that he lets Jonathan live, because it is because of Jonathan that he has finally found his long-lost love Elizabeth after all these centuries. Now that his search is over, Dracula needs to become young and beautiful again very quickly, and for that he is going to need a great deal of blood. He puts all the gargoyles to work immediately. Meanwhile, back in Paris, the priest is showing everyone a picture of Elizabeth and saying that they need to find a woman who looks exactly like this. Dracula is looking for this woman, and by finding her, they can track down Dracula. The priest also explains that Dracula was not born a vampire. He was once a simple human being, but he did something very terrible to God, and because of that he was cursed and became Dracula. Priest also explains that according to their holy books, if Dracula is killed, every vampire he ever created will return to being human again. And if Dracula sincerely asks God for forgiveness from the heart, God can lift the curse not from Dracula himself, but from every single person Dracula has turned into a vampire. All of them will be freed. At this moment, the doctor's assistant who is standing nearby looks at the picture of Elizabeth and says, "What a strange coincidence." A woman who looks exactly like this just came to the waiting room a little while ago to visit Maria. It turns out Maria and this woman are very close friends. And as we already know, this same woman is also Jonathan's fiancée. In the next scene, Dracula disguises himself as a monk and sneaks into a church. Once inside, he applies his magical perfume, and immediately all the nuns go completely crazy around him. He then drains the blood of all the women there, because drinking as much blood as possible is the only way for him to become young again. The scene shifts to Dracula's castle, where Jonathan has broken free of his chains and is trying to escape by tying bed sheets together to climb down from the castle walls. But just then, a gargoyle appears and cuts the sheets. Jonathan falls, but he is lucky enough to survive. He lands on what turns out to be a frozen body of water. Because the winter is so severe, the entire surface has turned to ice. Jonathan runs across it to escape. The gargoyles chase after him, but then the ice beneath their feet begins to crack and break. Some gargoyles fall through into the freezing water below. The remaining gargoyles, terrified of the same fate, stop chasing him, and in this way, Jonathan saves his own life and escapes. In the next scene, Dracula has finally arrived at the mental hospital where Maria was being kept. This time, he has returned young again. He looks exactly like the Prince Vlad we saw at the very beginning of this story. Young, handsome, and striking. He wears his magical perfume and takes control of everyone in the hospital, then makes his way to Maria's room. Dracula is very pleased with Maria, because it was Maria who had formed a friendship with Mina, the very girl who carries Elizabeth's soul inside her. As a reward, Dracula kills the doctor's assistant and lets Maria drink his blood. Then he takes Maria and escapes from the hospital with her. The following morning, the priest and doctor discover that Maria has disappeared from the hospital. The doctor's assistant has now turned completely into a vampire. Seeing all of this, the priest understands that Dracula came here while searching for Elizabeth. He also knows that Mina is Elizabeth, so he now realizes that Mina's life is in serious danger. In the next scene, we are shown Mina, the same woman Maria had come to visit. Mina is surprised and confused about how Maria recovered so quickly. Maria hugs her warmly and says, "Yes, look at me, I am completely fine now. The doctor has even discharged me. Why don't we go celebrate with a party?" Maria deliberately brings Mina to the very hotel where Dracula is already waiting. The moment Dracula lays eyes on Mina, time feels like it stops completely. Tears begin to fall from his eyes. He cannot control himself and walks straight over to her. When he kisses her hand, Mina is instantly flooded with visions from the past. This overwhelms and frightens her. She pulls her hand away and hurries off. Mina is still inside the hotel, trying to enjoy herself, but Dracula keeps following her everywhere she goes. Mina has no idea that the man who kissed her hand is the one following her. When she enters a haunted house attraction, she gets very frightened, and right then Dracula appears from behind and holds her close. Later, Mina visits a shooting booth. Dracula comes there too and teaches her how to shoot. Even here, Mina keeps receiving flashes of past visions. She keeps shaking them off because she simply does not believe in such things. Dracula keeps calling her Elizabeth over and over, talking to her about many things, trying hard to remind her that she was once Elizabeth. But Mina cannot remember anything at all and she leaves. Now Dracula follows her all the way to her hotel room and gives her the same golden music box that he gifted to Elizabeth at the very beginning of this movie. As she listens to the music from the box, many old memories begin to surface inside Mina. But at the same time, she starts to feel suspicious, wondering if Dracula is putting a spell on her somehow. Dracula tells her the truth. He admits that he has a perfume that allows him to control people. But he promises her that he has never used it on her and never will. And to prove it, he throws the perfume into the fire right in front of her because he had only ever made that perfume to find Elizabeth. But still Mina is confused and runs away again. When she arrives home, she finds that her fiancé Jonathan has returned in a very bad state. The priest and doctor are treating him. The priest then tells Mina everything. He tells her that Jonathan barely escaped from a Dracula who uses a magical perfume to control people and then bites them to turn them into vampires. Mina is now completely confused. Everything Dracula told her turns out to be true. Overwhelmed with confusion, she leaves Jonathan and goes to her room alone. She opens the music box again and listens to it. The old visions flood back to her. She is completely lost in them when suddenly Dracula appears before her. She stumbles back in fear, but Dracula tells her, "Whatever you have been thinking, I already know, and all of it is true." At these words, the two of them draw closer. And when Mina also feels in her heart that Dracula is her true and real love, she holds him in her arms. They spend a long and precious time together. And during one of those quiet moments, Dracula bites her neck and turns her into a vampire too. Mina is confused and frightened. Dracula tells her, "I never made you my victim, and I never planned to. I only made you like me so that you and I could live thousands of years together, side by side." Outside the room, the priest suddenly catches the faint smell of the same perfume Dracula used to wear. He understands at once that Dracula is here somewhere. When he enters Mina's room, he finds that Mina is already gone, and he realizes that Dracula came here and took Mina with him. The scene shifts to Maria, who is with her fiancé. She is trying to distract him with conversation while secretly planning to bite him and turn him into a vampire. But the priest arrives at exactly the right moment and saves the young man. When this happens, Maria goes completely wild with rage. She lunges at the priest to attack him. Before she can do anything, Jonathan draws his sword and cuts off her head in one swift move. Her head is fully separated from her body. But even then, her body keeps moving and shaking violently for a long time. The priest understands that she is not going to die this way, so he takes his crucifix and drives it straight into her heart. Only then does she finally die completely. The scene cuts to Romania. There is a great deal of activity in the castle today. 2 coffins are carried inside. Inside them are Dracula and Mina. The gargoyles greet them and give Mina a very warm welcome. They have even prepared beautiful clothes for her, which she puts on. But before they can settle into their happiness, at that very moment the priest arrives at the castle gates with his team and a large number of soldiers, ready to launch a full attack. Because the priest's mission is to break the curse on Dracula and free everyone he has ever turned into a vampire. Cannons fire and bullets fly. The gargoyles rush out to fight the soldiers, and a terrifying battle breaks out inside and outside the castle. Mina is overwhelmed with fear by all of it. Dracula comforts her, telling her nothing will happen. He asks her to stay inside while he goes out to handle things. He picks up his sword, steps outside, and within just a few seconds, cuts down every soldier that comes at him, spinning his sword so fast no one can stop him. Maria's fiancé fires bullet after bullet at Dracula, but not a single one has any effect. Dracula simply swings his sword and severs the young man's head from his body, killing him on the spot. The terrified priest then comes forward to face Dracula directly. He tells Dracula not to keep killing innocent people. Dracula replies that he does not want to kill anyone either, and he promises he will not turn anyone else into a vampire. Everything he ever did, he says, he did only to find his wife Elizabeth. But the priest tells him firmly that in doing so, he has turned so many people into vampires, and Dracula has absolutely no idea what destruction all those vampires will cause across this world. While they are still talking, Mina's scream is heard from inside. Dracula rushes to Mina and holds her in his arms. The two of them speak of their love for each other. Mina tells Dracula never to leave her, and Dracula promises he never will. But while they are together, the priest speaks to Dracula again, telling him to do what is right. If you do what is right, he says, you will still get what you truly want. In the other world, you will be reunited with your wife Elizabeth, and this world will also be kept safe. This time, Dracula listens. He accepts the priest's words and agrees to submit to God's will. And in that same moment from behind, the priest drives his crucifix deep into Dracula's heart. When Mina sees this from inside the room, she breaks completely. She pulls Dracula's body inside with her. After finally finding her love again, she cannot bear to watch him leave like this. For the last time, Dracula tells her he loves her, and then his body grows older and older before her eyes, slowly turning to ash and disappears completely. Mina cries until she can barely breathe. And Jonathan, watching Mina weep like this for someone else, breaks apart inside. We are shown the scene outside the castle. Darkness covers everything. Dracula's ashes drift away in the wind. Every single gargoyle has transformed back into a human child, and every single vampire has returned to being a human being once again. And with this, the entire story comes to its beautiful and bittersweet end. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our videos. Drop a comment below saying, "Next," if you want to see more amazing and thrilling movie explanations just like this one. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.